What's up, guys? I'm Laura from Reading in Bed, and we find ourselves here on Giller Shortlist Eve. And I haven't really talked much about the Giller Prize, and nor have I really seen much here on BookTube or even book blogs. I've seen a little bit, but not a ton. So let's talk about it a bit. This is going to be a really casual video where I'm going to go down the long list and just tell you my thoughts, predictions, reviews if I've read the book. Last year I did a more formal kind of try a chapter tag, I think it was called. It was going around at the time. So I used my Kobo and read previews from each of the long listed books and gave my impressions, and based on that chose which book to read. That was a lot of fun, but I don't have the time today to film something like that because it takes a while. However, I will have time on Friday, so if you would like to see that for the short list, then let me know, and I'll try to get that done on Friday. But for today, we're just going to chat, okay? So let's get started. The first of the long listed books is Brother by David Chariandy. So I picked this up yesterday in Chapters. It was buy 3, get 1 free weekend, and I had gift cards, so it was crazy. And I got this, and I mean, it's one of these kind of undersized hardcovers, which I love. And it's a novella, which no one is talking about. It's 180 some pages, 180 exactly. So it's novella length. So now I really hope it wins, because the Giller Prize winner is announced in November, which would be super on brand for novellas in November. Stay tuned for that. Apart from that, I know, unsurprisingly, it's a story about a pair of brothers. They are the children of immigrants from Trinidad. They are living in Scarborough in the early 90s. And, well, it sounds like their home life is fairly stable. They're facing a lot of barriers and prejudices and stuff in their day-to-day lives. So right now I'm reading a book that might have some parallels with this. It's called My Name is Leon by Kit de Waal. Also about two brothers, also living in sort of a poor neighborhood, but it's in the UK, and it's in the early 80s rather than the 90s. Oh, and that book is so good. It's so sad. It goes off in a different direction, though, because in My Name is Leon, the children are apprehended from their mother, who's a drug addict and has mental health problems. And then one of the children, who is white, is adopted immediately. The other child, who's half black and half white, is not adopted, and it's a heartbreaker. So, I mean, like, plot-wise, it's not going to be the same as this, but sort of the setup with the brothers and the low-income kind of housing complex, and that sounds like there could be some parallels. So we'll see once I've read them both. I'd like to get to this one really soon, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be on the short list. It sounds like it's almost a lock to win the thing this year, so we shall see. Next up, we have Transit by Rachel Cusk. So this is a sequel to Outline, which was also longlisted, and I think it was even shortlisted a couple years ago for the Giller. I loved Outline. She is great. I mean, it's the only one I've read of hers, but I am going to read this. Got it from the library. But the thing is, okay, her parents moved to Canada, had her, and moved away from Canada within a couple of years, and she has never lived in Canada since. So, while I do not begrudge her citizenship, she is a Canadian because she was born here. It's like, prize juries, do we need to keep shortlisting and longlisting and nominating people who are really only technical Canadians? I mean, so, well, I'm sure I'm going to love this book. I don't really want to see it on the short list. Sorry. Okay, so next up is The Bone Mother by David Demchuk. And I don't know anything about this except when Anne Logan and I, another Canadian book blogger, were sort of joking about how some of these titles on the long list sound like they came out of a CanLit book title generator. This was one of them, and the author liked our tweet about that on Twitter. So he's got a sense of humor. That's a good thing. Next up is We'll All Be Burnt in Our Beds Some Night by Joel Thomas Hynes. Don't know anything about that. Next up is Boundary by Andrée A. Michaud, which I have on hold at the library. It is translated from French, and it's nice that with our, our National Literary Awards, we sometimes remember that we do have 2 official languages in this country. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a shot, and I don't really know much else about it at this point. Next up is Tumbleweed by Josip Novakovich. This is a collection of short stories, and I have a tough time with collections of short stories on, like when it comes to literary prizes, because for the most part, collections are uneven. So when you're judging a prize, are you judging it by its strongest story? Are you judging it by its weakest story, or are you somehow averaging them? And how do you do that? I have the same issue whenever I'm trying to review or rate a short story collection. It's like, well, it's not one thing, it's a collection of things. So yeah, I mean, I'm not really planning to read this one, but we'll see what happens come shortlist announcement. The next one is Mines of Winter by Ed O'Loughlin. This is the title which made me make the original joke about the Canlit title generator. And this is another of those authors who are, you know, Canadian, yes, but really. So Ed O'Loughlin was born in Canada, moved away when he was 6, now lives in Ireland and has lived there ever since, as far as I know. So at least this book is set in Canada. It's set in Inuvik. So that's different. So I thought I would give this a shot, despite the title and despite the, you know, dubious nature of it being on the long list. So yeah, we'll see. I might, like, this is the kind of thing, I'm going to see if it makes a short list, and if not, it may just go back to the library. Next up is Bellevue Square by Michael Redhill. I'm just not interested in that one, so that's all I'm going to say. Next Year for Sure by Zoey, Leigh, Peterson is a book that I have heard actually a lot of good things about. I had my hand on it in the bookstore yesterday, but I chose something else. Heard a lot of good reviews. Somehow it strikes me as sort of more commercial fiction than literary fiction, which is fine, but you don't always see that on prize lists. So that's another one where I'm kind of waiting. I'm waiting and seeing about the shortlist and all of that, so we'll see. Next is Son of a Trickster by Eden Robinson, which I have read, but I read on an e-reader, so I don't have a copy to hold up. It was great. The reason I read it and read it when I did is because I figured it would make the long list. And because her previous book, Monkey Beach, was at least longlisted, if not shortlisted. So, you know, we kind of knew it was coming. It was very, you know, highly anticipated. And it was great. It was a coming-of-age story about a teenage boy with some supernatural elements mixed in, and that can go so wrong so fast, but it was handled really well. And for a story that centers on teenagers, the dialogue was really good, really realistic, really smart, without getting into Dawson's Creek / Gilmore Girls territory, where it's just like, kids don't talk like that. And, you know, it was real. There was lots of, you know, casual sex, casual drug use, drinking, smoking, you know, all sorts of stuff, which, like, in any book like that, half the Goodreads reviews are just like, oh, there's so much swearing and so much sex. Like, well, yeah, I mean, you're reading about a teenager, so deal with it. I really, really liked it. I really hope to see it on the short list. If it's shortlisted or it wins, it might have the perhaps dubious honor of being the book with the most instances of the C word to attain either of those honors. I would think, anyway. There's quite a few, and the people on Goodreads are not happy about it. It's a great book, though, so check it out. Next up, and second to last, is The Dark and Other Love Stories by Deborah Willis. So I checked this out of the library. It was another one where I checked it out and I was like, you know, it's a collection. We'll see. Maybe I'll wait for the shortlist. But just happened to tweet, you know, a picture of my stack and asked, you know, crowdsourced what book I should read next. And this came up. And I loved it. Like, you know, I've been raving about this on Twitter and Goodreads, but I just talked about how short story collections are typically so uneven. This is not uneven. Every single story, with one exception, which I'll get to, is a winner and is so strong. And, you know, there is sort of some threads throughout, but without being really hokey and obvious. There's like one or two characters who recur. There are definitely themes and motifs like birds and flight and things that recur. Lots of coming of age type stuff in here. And this collection blew me away. I mean, we've got the Alice Munro blurb, so, you know, things are going to go well. So yeah, I mean, I would love to see this on the short list, if not to take the thing, because I can't think of a contemporary collection that I've read that's this strong. You know, if you kind of discount classic things like Jean Rhys and Chekhov and stuff, like, you know. But as far as contemporary literature, this is by far the strongest collection I've maybe ever read. So the one story that didn't really work for me, it's more because of the content. Like, there are certain, you know, plots and content in books or stories that I have a hard time with, and it's just more because of my personal experience. So I know that. I know I'm not coming at it logically or objectively whatsoever. So I sort of, like, for me, I'm just like removing that story. But I do want to mention one thing about that story, if I can find it. Yeah, okay, so it's called The Ark, and there's a little epigram or epigraph, I always forget, but there's a little quote to start the story, and it's the only one that has that. The quote is, "What is love, people?" And it's from Lynn Coady's Mr. Hope. Now, Lynn Coady is a Giller Prize winning author. She won the Giller Prize for a story collection called Hellgoing, from which this quote is pulled, and she's on the jury this year. So I recently wrote an essay or an article about Canlit, and one of the things I talked about was like the insular nature of Canlit, and how like everyone knows everyone, and like, you know, people who win Giller Prizes and judge them and blurb the books and stuff are also like closely intertwined. So this is like such a hilarious example of that. Plus the quote is like, I mean, it's almost such a throwaway quote. You might as well just quote Hathaway, "What is love?" And she does quote Hathaway later in that story. So I'm like, why did you quote that? Anyway, so that's just my little Canlit aside on that one. But I loved it. I'm ignoring that story, and the rest of it was so great. And finally, the last long lister is I Am a Truck by Michelle Winters, which I totally was ignoring. The title was like, huh? But then there was a deal on it with 49th Shelf. If it's still available, I'll link it below. So it was on sale for $16, and when I clicked through, I saw that the author is from St. John, New Brunswick, which is my ancestral hometown. My parents are both from there. So I thought, okay, I will give this a chance, and we shall see. So it's on its way, presumably, and I will read it, and we'll see if it makes the shortlist. So that's it. That's the long list. The short list is being announced at 9 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. I'll be at work, so I'll, maybe have a little window open somewhere, and I'm sure I'll join all you guys on Twitter and talk about what we think of it. So thanks for watching. If you have read any of these books or you have any predictions of your own, let me know down below. I didn't really get into predictions. Other than Brother, I don't really know. I have no clue what we're going to see. So let's find out together. Thanks for watching.